You're listening to The Gabby Gordon Show. New to the community? Head to GabbyGordonShow.com today. Sign up for the mailing list for exclusive Q&As, conversations, and special surprises. Send in sports-related voice messages, including all questions, through our website to be featured in a future episode. Once again, that's GabbyGordonShow.com. GabbyGordon show.com. Let's kick off today's episode.
What is going on, sports fans? You're listening to The Gabby Gordon Show. My name is Gabby Gordon, welcoming you into this fine Tuesday, January 2nd, 2024. That's right. Happy New Year, happy holidays, happy everything to all who are listening. Thank you so much for joining me to start off your week. We're back to the regularly programmed schedule. You all are back to work or school or wherever you may go during the day. And we are going to start the new year off strong. We had some great stuff going on last week. Yesterday with college football, we got NFL, we've got NBA, everything crazy. But before we begin, from me to you, Happy New Year. May this one be one filled with peace, happiness, and some sports fun. Also do want to note that as I inch closer to my spring semester of college, the schedule is going to alter, and we will not be going Monday through Friday anymore. Instead, we will be doing some big recap the week preview next week shows for Tuesdays. So from now on, the Gabby Gordon Show will be airing same time, same place. Everything is the same, except you will just see me on Tuesdays, 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time at GabbyGordonShow.com. But with all that being said, let's start the new year off strong. 2024 is actually my lucky number, so I am feeling very hype about this year ahead. 2023 came with its challenges. We were met with challenges both in the sports world, I'm sure in your personal lives too. So just a little bit of an ounce of motivation as we head into the new year, as we open up this new year with all possibilities for life and also the Gabby Gordon Show. Just go after it. I posted this. This is the year where you go after the life you want. So let's get after it, make it happen, and talk some sports, because every day is a great day to talk sports. Let's get into it. You're listening to The Gabby Gordon Show. Welcome to The Gabby Gordon Show. My name is Gabby Gordon. Welcome you in to today's electric show that we've got ahead of us. We truly have some crazy, amazing sports moments to talk about since we last met, and I would be remiss to not start the show today with some of the most exciting college football that we have seen in a very long time. 2 games on the absolute stage. Had the hype. Usually the hype doesn't always live up to what it is, and they certainly did. We got to start off with Michigan and Alabama. We've got our national championship set for college football. It's going to be Michigan. It's going to be Washington. The Wolverines versus the Huskies. Both teams earned their right into this championship, and we're going to talk about just how they got there. Michigan-Alabama was one of the best college football games we've seen in a while. We've seen mistakes. We saw tons of mistakes out of Michigan. We saw the fair share of mistakes out of Alabama. Overtime, could you have asked for a better game? Came down to overtime, and when you put the ball in the hands of your best players, when it matters most, good things happen, and that is exactly what Michigan football did. Michigan was down 20-13 late in the fourth quarter. They had some seriously disappointing drives in the second half, some mistakes, some botched trick plays, and Michigan finally saw an opportunity to make a statement, and they took it. J.J. McCarthy took the Wolverines 75 yards down the field for the game-tying touchdown on a drive that was kickstarted by an excellent 4th and 2 play call, and capped off by two incredibly crucial plays from one of their studs, Roman Wilson. Now, Michigan's defense got a quick stop on the next drive and set up their offense with a chance to win before overtime. They had a chance to win in regulation with a tie game here. We were tied up at 20. But, alas, another mistake. It was a really, really bad game for Michigan special teams all around. Punting was awful, and receiving was not great either. A muffed punt pinned the Wolverines just inches from the goal line, and at that point, all they could do was first run the ball so that they didn't give up a safety, and then kneel to bring it to overtime and hope to win it then. And let me just tell you, I first have never heard of the guy who was back there to receive for Michigan in that last punt by Alabama. I've never seen him on the field. I looked around at my dad and brother, also Michigan fans. They're definitely bigger Michigan fans than I am. And they had never heard of him either. He was so incredibly lucky that he recovered the football and didn't recover it in the end zone for a safety. You know how lucky that kid is? You know what must have been going through his head in the moment that he picked the ball up and he had these big Alabama defenders just chugging at him full speed ahead, trying to kill him? Could you imagine what we would be talking about today if the Michigan Wolverines lost on a muffed punt recovered by Alabama into the end zone for a touchdown? I don't think we would ever hear the end of that, but that did not happen. And despite the special teams mistakes, the team was able to keep the spirits high, and Jim Harbaugh got his guys when he needed to get his guys going. It was really the Roman Wilson and Blake Corum night. Blake Corum muscled his way into the end zone just 2 plays into overtime. He meant business, no wasting time here. They wanted to go, seal the deal, and get forward to a national championship. And their defense was so dominant throughout the season that it came up with one of the biggest stops in program history. You had Jalen Milroe on 4th and goal just minutes later. I don't really know what play call he was calling there with the whole QB sneak right up the middle. But it ended the game. And you know what? As a Michigan fan, you're just sitting there and you are just praying, please don't score, please don't score, please don't score, please don't score, please don't score. And Michigan's defense came through when it mattered. Those D linemen are dogs, and they worked their butts off all game long. Because Jalen Milroe, we know, he is a very Lamar Jackson type player where he's going to run the ball if he sees an opening. And a lot of times throughout the game, the Michigan defense would kind of blitz at him, but then leave a pocket open and a lane open with nobody else there to defend that opening lane for Milroe, and he would just take it and run with it. And it didn't seem like at the half that Michigan had really adjusted to what they were seeing on the offensive front for Alabama. And at the same way, it looked like Nick Saban had adjusted. So headed into the fourth quarter, when Michigan's facing a 20-13 deficit late in the fourth quarter, my immediate thoughts are this game's over. They look defeated. They look tired, and their offense is making tons of mistakes. The Michigan punter had an awful day. Just really not great punting at all. And it was a little bit nerve-wracking if you're a Michigan fan, because it looked like Nick Saban was slowly pulling away with this win. And Nick Saban, easily the best coach in college football history. He was just thrilled to end up in this college football playoff because Alabama had a really sluggish start to the season overall. But now, of course, he's done. He's got to spend the offseason wondering how a game that they had control of so late in the fourth quarter got away from them so quickly. They had the upper hand. They were with the steering wheel. They were driving the car for the majority of the second half. And it just slipped away from them very quickly. Meanwhile, Michigan wins a playoff game for the first time and will play for a national championship against Washington in Houston next Monday. This season was a tough-fought one for the Wolverines. They had a lot of scandals and suspensions overshadowing their team. The whole Harbaugh situation that was going on when he wasn't even there to coach in one of their games. And the scandals really, really overshadowed their entire season. And they have a chance now against the Huskies in Houston next Monday to put their name in the history books. J.J. McCarthy has a chance to be the guy we've all hoped he would be. He has a chance to put his name in history. And speaking of history, we know Tom Brady's history with Michigan. John Harbaugh actually said last night he believes J.J. McCarthy is the best quarterback that Michigan football has ever had. Now, of course, Tom Brady's college career versus NFL career, two very different caliber careers. Tom Brady was not all that in college. And that is why he was not all that in the draft when he got drafted in the 6th round by the Patriots. But look at what he was able to create. And look at what he's able to become. And if J.J. McCarthy can put his name in the history books, lead Michigan, he has now led Michigan to their first college football playoff win. If he can go all the way and win a national championship, heads are going to start to turn for this kid. And I think one of the greatest stories about this entire thing is that when they lost last season, there's a wonderfully telling picture. It really just speaks 1,000 words by just looking at it, of J.J. McCarthy just staring at the celebrations that he had missed out on when the Huskies, the Washington Huskies, were able to beat them in the playoffs last year. And this is now his first college playoff win, the program's first college football playoff win. And to see him biting the rose and just holding up the trophy, you just got to feel good for the kid. So now we transition to their opponents in the national championship, and that is going to be the Michael Penix Jr.-led Washington Huskies, who have advanced over Texas. They won last night, 37-31. That was the final. And they will now be pushing their spot into the national championship game against Michigan. So here is how they took the win in the Sugar Bowl. I mean, they tried to lose this game. Washington did everything in their power to give this game away in the final seconds, and it came down to the final second of the game. The Huskies, led by Heisman Trophy finalist Michael Penix Jr., fought off a late comeback by Texas to win 37-31 in the Sugar Bowl last night. Texas Longhorns were down 6, and they drove the length of the field in the final minute of regulation. But the pass on 4th and 11 from Washington's 13-yard line had been broken up by Elijah Jackson, and that sealed the deal. Penix passed for 430 yards and 2 touchdowns, helping the University of Washington pull away in the second half after a back-and-forth first 2 quarters that actually ended tied at 21. So this was a back-and-forth game all game long. You couldn't have asked for better performances out of these two teams, but Washington tried to give this game away late. And Quinn Ewers had a chance to drive them down for Texas, but was not good enough for the Washington defense, who is not miraculous. So a great play by Elijah Jackson to break that up and send them to the national championship game. And so now you can't help but wonder, is Michigan in the seat to win this whole thing now? Washington led up 31 points to Texas, Quinn Ewers. They have Michael Penix Jr., who is a beast, but the Alabama defense is just is light years better than what Washington has on defense. And coached by Nick Saban, and the Michigan Wolverines were still able to overcome that, despite playing a bad game too. For me, watching this game, Michigan did not look good. They had sparks. Blake Corum, Roman Wilson came through when they needed to. J.J. McCarthy led them down 75 yards when it mattered. But there were some plays where you just sitting there scratching your head, what is John Harbaugh doing? He's trying to get cute here, and it wasn't working. Their special teams looked shaky, muffed punts, terrible punts on the opposite side by the Michigan punter. So they didn't play a clean game. And when you mess up against Alabama, Nick Saban takes advantage of that, and they were still able to pull away with the win. So that in itself brings me to the belief that Michigan can win this entire thing. And now they will be put up against the 14-0 Huskies in the title game next Monday. And what a game that is going to be. Heisman finalist Michael Penix Jr., J.J. McCarthy, you got Blake Corum, Roman Wilson. You've got the stars of college football facing off in the national championship. And for the first time, you Michigan Wolverines fans get to bask in the glory of getting to this point. Win or lose, you have made it to the national championship. And now all you got to do is win one more game. And for the other side, Washington just has to win one more game. The Michigan defense is going to have to completely prepare all week long for the stud that Michael Penix Jr. is. Again, 430 yards and 2 touchdowns he was able to put up last night against a good Texas defense. And he was able to give just enough where it mattered most so that his team could pull away with the win and send his squad against Michigan in the national championship. It's like chills down my spine. It's just really some exciting stuff. Great matchup ahead. We're going to be talking about it all week long on Twitter. If we had Monday through Friday show this week, we'd probably be talking about what the odds are every single day. But again, just Tuesdays. So we're getting it all in right now. And I can't wait to talk about this game next Tuesday after it is over, because the game will be held on Monday in Houston. And it is just a beautiful, beautiful triumph for both of these teams to get to this point. Some may say even heroic on some sides of the ball. Blake Corum, Penix Jr., heroic type players. I can't wait to watch these two face off against each other. Let's take a quick timeout, and we'll be back right after this. Welcome back to the Gabby Gordon Show. My name is Gabby Gordon. Let's switch some gears, take a little bit of a step up to the National Football League now, where we're going to see some of these college football studs in very soon, hopefully. Certainly some of these guys playing in the national championship right now, but we are headed into the final week, regular season of the NFL, Week 18, and there's some still serious playoff scenarios that are starting to take shape here. We have multiple teams that clinched or improved their postseason positions through the early wave of games on Sunday, and there are also 4 divisions that are going to go down to the wire next weekend. So we've got some pretty big stories to get through here. I think the biggest story has to be the late season collapse of the Philadelphia Eagles, which has now given the Dallas Cowboys control of the NFC East. The Philadelphia Eagles dropped to the once 3-12 Arizona Cardinals, now 4-12. Maybe the worst game that the Eagles have seen all season, maybe the most embarrassing, and certainly the worst time for it. And with that, the Cowboys, who just narrowly beat the Detroit Lions, we'll get to that controversial finish in a minute, they just have to beat the Washington Commanders on the road next weekend to claim the division title, which is something that didn't seem possible at all for them after the Eagles started 10-1 this season. So if Dallas can pull it off, they'll host at least one playoff game. And that would mark the 18th season in which the division hasn't had a repeat champion. That's the longest streak in the NFL, NBA, NHL, and MLB. The Eagles are not completely out of it yet. They can still claim the division, but only with a win over the New York Giants, and the Cowboys have to lose. So the Eagles control half of their fate, and the other half is just up to the Cowboys and their performance. The Cowboys are on the road, so it's very possible they could lose that game. If the Eagles can take over the Giants, they can still claim the division. The Cowboys beat the Commanders 45-10 in Dallas on Thanksgiving, but as we know, they struggled deeply in their past road games. So the Eagles still do have a chance. It's a shot in the dark. I think Dallas is going to come and stomp on the Commanders, even on the road, just because the Commanders are not a good football team. And because at this point, the Eagles have put themselves in the position to lose control of the division. So at this point, honestly, the Cowboys deserve to take it all. The Eagles have fallen apart at the worst point of the season against teams that are just terrible. And it all happened after that one loss against the Seahawks where Jalen Hurts was under the weather and where he spoke out against the team's commitment And nothing has been the same since then. And they just look like a fraud franchise that started their year 10-1. But the Cowboys have a serious chance now to win the division. And that Detroit Lions finish was huge for them, but it was incredibly controversial, and in my mind, they lost that game. Look, the whole situation about Taylor Decker not reporting, there was a big man touchdown, he caught the 2-point conversion. I'm sorry, it wasn't a big man touchdown, but it was a touchdown. Then they went for 2, as Dan Campbell does. Risky call. He could have just gone for the extra point, gone for the tie, but we know Dan Campbell all too well. He goes for it all, and he's gutsy, and he went for the 2-point conversion with a trick play. Taylor Decker wide open in the end zone. Number 68, and what do they say? They throw the flag because he didn't report. Because apparently he did not report eligible to the referee prior to the play. And apparently for some reason they had number 70, who I believe was the right guard on that play, as reported, but Decker was not number 68. He was 68. He did not report. Now, you look back at the press conferences, and I'm going to play that right now for you. Dan Campbell was not happy.
70 reported.
Did Decker report as well?
Yeah, the explanation was 70 reported.
Did Decker report?
Yes.
All right, so, Dan Campbell was spitting out his gum in that video, so he's, kind of out of the frame. But if you didn't hear what he said, he was asked, did 70 report? Campbell says, yes. The explanation was that 70 reported. He crumpled up a piece of paper, clearly frustrated, and then he also apparently said yes to 68 reporting as well. Jared Goff seems to have cleared that situation up, but I just want to play what Dan Campbell said at the end of the game. When he was asked questions, we know he's an intense guy, but he was absolutely livid at this press conference.
If both players report?
2 people can't report. I don't want to talk about it. All right? I explain everything pregame to a T. Okay? I did that. 70 reported, 58 didn't, or 68 didn't. We threw it to 68. That was the explanation.
Okay. Can you just explain the mentality to go for 2 there at the end? Obviously, you wanted to keep the game in your hand and try to win it.
I told the offense that we were going down 141 left. We're going to go down and score, and then we're going to go for 2 and finish this game out. I told them that, and so that's what we were doing.
And being backed up, that didn't change anything when you get backed up to the 7?
Backed up where?
To the 7 instead of the 2 from the 2-point play. Did you think at all?
We were going for win.
So, usually Campbell's a talkative guy. He also screamed at the media, but we're just going to move on from that. He was really livid. And honestly, he should be livid. Because when you hear what Jared Goff had to say after clearing up, because clearly Campbell was confused here. Because he thought that 2 guys can't report at the same time or whatever, that's the rule, whatever that may be. And that 70 reported, but 68 didn't report. So he seemed to be confused. It looks like there was a ton of confusion. Especially on the sideline, there was even more confusion between the refs and whatnot. And this is what Goff had to say about Decker actually reporting.
Get that ball out a little earlier, we might have it. And then the last one, might have a chance somewhere. I don't know, but unfortunate. I don't know what's come out since at the end there, but sucks.
What was your conversations with the officials there? You were trying to say something.
When?
After the first 2-point play.
Pretty confused. What I do know, and I don't know if I'll get fined for this, but I do know that Decker reported. I do know that Dan Skipper did not. And I do know that they said that Dan Skipper did. So, it's unfortunate.
Even the fact that he acknowledged that he was going to get fined for that shows that I don't think he's, just pulling it out of nowhere to back up the loss, And he even went on to say, it's a team loss, it doesn't come down to one play, but if you're looking at that, and even if you're looking at the replay of Decker going over and 70 and where the ref's head was and where he was looking in the direction, he got it wrong. And that lost them the game. And that seems to have happened way too much this season. And I would give a lot of props to the Lions, for keeping their composure. Because we've seen some seriously bad mess-ups around the league where teams do not keep their composure. We've seen some questionable calls where they're the right call, but teams still do not keep their composure and get fined for it. So I don't know if Jared Goff got fined for speaking out against the refs, but it seems very simply like there was a big mistake made, and that changes a lot for the playoff picture. And all in all, Lions should have won that game. And Dallas did not deserve to have that win. I did mention the Dolphins just before. We're going to move on now. The Dolphins and the Bills are the next big story here. They're going to be battling for the AFC East title this week. Because the Dolphins lost last week, a pretty rough loss for them, they'll be taking on the Bills next week with the AFC title, the AFC East title on the line, that is. So if the Dolphins can win, they'll be claiming the division for the first time since the 2008 season under head coach Mike McDaniel. Otherwise, the Bills will win the title for a fourth consecutive season. Buffalo almost let go against the Patriots. They won barely 27-21 on Sunday to pick up their fourth straight win, and they have not yet clinched a playoff spot. They can still make it into the postseason with a loss, depending on how the rest of the AFC shakes out, but it's not guaranteed. They would need the Steelers to lose to the Ravens on Saturday night, or the Jaguars to fall to the Titans next Sunday, both of which can happen. The Steelers can absolutely lose to the Ravens, so the Bills would have it completely out of their hands and into the hands of other matchups if they lose this game against the Dolphins, and of course if they win, they will take over the title. But they are not in the playoffs yet, and it is not completely guaranteed. Another big story, the Bucs can still win the NFC South. Tampa could have clinched the NFC South on Sunday, but they just fell apart against New Orleans, and that 4-game winning streak came to a close. Baker Mayfield did not look good at all. Luckily for him and the Bucs, however, they can still claim the division next weekend. All they gotta do is win against the Carolina Panthers, who only have 2 games all season in their winning category. And they just fell to the Jaguars in a shutout 26-0 this past weekend. So, should it be an easy victory for the Bucs? Probably the easiest way for any team to get into the division lead at this point in the season. All they gotta do is beat the worst team in the league. If they lose and the Saints beat the Falcons next week, New Orleans will be winning this division and they will host a playoff game. So if that happens, we're going to be looking at some really interesting playoff matchups. And if the Bucs can drop to the Panthers, then everything I've said about Baker Mayfield, it was wrong. The Saints can get a wild card spot if they win and the Seahawks are defeated and the Packers are defeated. So really quickly, just running it back, I know there's a lot of information that goes into these. How can you make the playoffs? And it gets confusing even for me too. If the Bucs lose this weekend against the Panthers and the Saints beat the Falcons, then New Orleans will win the division and host a playoff game. If that does not happen, the Saints can still get a wild card spot with a win and losses by the Seahawks and the Packers. Now, these are 3 big teams now who still are playing for playoff implications. The Texans, the Jags, and the Colts. Texans win and they get in. The Jags can claim the AFC South this weekend, and the Colts are still in the hunt. But all 3 still have chances to make it into this postseason race. So the Texans, they are so close. So close to their first postseason berth since 2019. And they annihilated the Titans 26-3 on Sunday. If they can beat the Colts next weekend, that is a huge game. Texans-Colts, that is going to be a huge game. If they can win, then they will secure a wild card spot, as they will hold tiebreakers over the Bengals, the Broncos, and the Steelers. Now, the Jaguars, with their win over the Panthers this past week, they can win the AFC South with a victory over the Titans next weekend. And the Colts, follow me here, are currently in the wild card position, and they can take the South crown with a Saturday night victory over the Texans and a Jaguars defeat in the regular season finale against the Titans. And then in that case, Indianapolis would clinch a playoff berth outright with a win Saturday. So there's a ton here, but that Texans-Colts game is going to be a huge one for both sides. Texans win and get in. The Colts need to play for something here. Both teams need to win this game. And I love the games where it is a must-win for both sides, because ultimately only one side wins. We got some more here. The Rams clinched a playoff spot. The Seahawks and Steelers, they still need help in Week 18. So the Pittsburgh Steelers now have a winning record this season, which is a 17th straight under Coach Mike Tomlin, which we did not know if he was going to be able to reach that this year. They can still make the playoffs, too, with a win next week and some extra help. It's not completely in their hands, but if they win, they can put it in their hands a little bit more. They'll take on the Ravens on Saturday night in Baltimore. The Ravens have already clinched the number 1 seed in the AFC, and honestly, they're at this point favorites to win the whole thing. So for the Steelers to get into the postseason, they're going to need a win against the Ravens. That's first and foremost. They can't do that, they got no shot. And they're going to have the Dolphins beat the Bills on Sunday night as well. That needs to happen. Some other avenues to clinch a wild card berth would be that they would need a victory against the Ravens and the Titans need to upset the Jaguars, or the Jaguars and the Raiders lose and the Colts and Texans doesn't end in a tie. Those are Steelers' way to that. And the Seahawks are currently on the outside looking in here. If they return to the postseason, it's going to be because they beat the Cardinals in Week 18 and the Packers lose to the Bears, both of which can happen. But still, huge playoff implications for these teams. And then last but certainly not least, speaking of the Packers and the Bears, the NFC North is out of reach. Of course, the Lions already claimed that title in their historic fashion. But the Packers' playoff hopes are still alive, and I will tell you as a fan, there was no hopes of that coming into this season. They demolished the Vikings 33-10 on Sunday night in Minneapolis. Jordan Love looked great. The team really looked great. And that set up a win and get in game for the Packers this coming week at Lambeau. Against Chicago. Couldn't be a better matchup. If they beat the Bears, they're in. If they lose, they're not in. And that opens the door for the Seahawks or the Saints to make it in. It's not a win and in or a lose and done, though. If the Packers stumble and cannot pull it off against the Bears have been playing good ball. So if they cannot pull it off, it's very possible they can still make the playoffs if the Saints lose, the Seahawks, and the Vikings as well. Or if the Bucs, Seahawks, and Vikings lose. And the Vikings were not eliminated from playoff contention with the loss against the Packers, but for them it's going to be very difficult because they'd need to beat the Lions, and then the Packers, Seahawks, and Saints would all have to lose. They can also make it in with a victory Sunday against the Lions, and if the Packers, Seahawks, and Bucs all lose. Now, the Bears have been eliminated from the playoffs completely. They're headed into the regular season finale, though they locked up the number 1 pick in the draft. So they're not taking their foot off the gas. They're still going to try and finish their season strong, even though they're out of playoff contention. They've got the number 1 pick. They're where they want to be. Their team has been playing some decent football. It's not totally a guaranteed win for the Packers at all whatsoever. So this could go either way, but this is a win and in for the Packers, and that would be a really, really phenomenal way to end Jordan Love's first full regular season as a Green Bay Packer. That was a lot. I'm kind of out of breath there. I mean, we've just got so many phenomenal matchups coming out on Week 18, and there's just still so many chances for teams to make it in that you never thought could. I mean, come on, the Saints have a chance here. The Packers have a chance here. You know, the Colts, the Texans, they all have chances here. I mean, would you ever think that the Texans would have a chance to make the playoffs under C.J. Stroud this year and the team that they have? I would have told you no. So that's a huge game. But it's really going to be a phenomenal matchup. We'll really, really quickly run down the Week 18 slate starting on Saturday, January 6th. 4:30 p.m., Pittsburgh will be at Baltimore. That's a big game, big rivalry there. Of course, Baltimore's already clinched that entire NFC. AFC, sorry. 8:15 p.m., Houston at Indianapolis. That will conclude the Saturday slate. And then the real quick rundown here on the Sunday slate, you got Atlanta at New Orleans. That's 1 p.m. New York Jets at New England. Tampa Bay at Carolina. Minnesota at Detroit. Jacksonville at Tennessee. Cleveland at Cincinnati. Chicago at Green Bay will start off your afternoon slate at 4:25. Big game there. Denver at Las Vegas. Dallas at Washington. Philly at New York. That's another big game for the Philadelphia Eagles there. Seattle at Arizona. Arizona coming off of a huge upset over the Eagles, so Seattle's got to keep their guard down there. Kansas City at Los Angeles Chargers. Then Los Angeles Rams at San Francisco. And then at 8:20 p.m., your night game would be Buffalo at Miami Hard Rock Stadium. Both teams need to win that game as well, so that's going to be a good matchup to close out the Week 18 season. And of course, there are no bye weeks. There is no Monday Night Football game. So with the Bills and Dolphins, that will conclude the 2023-2024 NFL regular season. And I cannot wait to talk about who is in, who is not in, who got a win and in, who got a lose and done. There's just a lot of excitement that surrounds the final week of football. I can't believe we're here already, but while we are, let's bask in the excitement to see what teams can get in to the final postseason race. That was a long one. Thanks for sticking with me, if you did stick with me, because there's just, it's like a puzzle. It's honestly like putting together a puzzle. And these puzzle pieces need to be put in just right for some of these teams. And the puzzle is starting to get filled, and we're almost complete with it. So we're going to have the completion of the puzzle by this time next week. Thanks for being here for this one. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back to the Gabby Gordon Show. My name is Gabby Gordon. If you're just tuning in, we just went through a ton of Week 18 playoff implication scenarios. Cowboys, Bills, Dolphins, Steelers, Saints, Packers, all of it. There's just a ton of football coming up. Some really important football coming up as well for our final week of football in the NFL. Sad, it's bittersweet, but it's also a really exciting time of year. I was going to talk about the Knicks trade, but at this point, it's like, is it even relevant in the news anymore? It happened a couple days ago. It actually happened, I believe, after last week's show, the final show of the year. I think it happened on Friday. If I'm wrong about that, not sure. But RJ Barrett and Emmanuel Quigley are out from the Knicks. And in comes OG Anunoby. So some people criticized it. Some people said, what are the Knicks doing? Why would they give away Barrett and Quigley? But they have been shipped off, and they are out. And Anunoby took part in the morning walkthroughs before the game. He says he's excited to join the Knicks. He played against Madison Square Garden in front of the fans, and he had a pretty good performance. I believe he fouled out, but it was a good performance. And it looks like we're also going to see some increased playing offensive roles for DiVincenzo after the trade. So it looks like the Knicks are on the move here now. And it looks like they're not done. And a lot of people said that after the announcement of this trade, that maybe this is something larger on the rise. Maybe this is kind of a rental, and this move isn't going to last, and this is kind of just for a bigger move. I don't think that's the case, but I do think that they are kind of changing things up, because as people have said, the Knicks have kind of been stagnant for a little bit. They're not bad at all. They haven't been playing bad. It's just that they've been playing kind of stagnant. The team has looked the same for a while now. They didn't really have any big sparks, no huge talent that you can speak of where it's like, wow, we want that guy. Julius Randle's, of course, one of those big names, but now DiVincenzo's been stepping up, and of course Anunoby, who is now part of this team. It looks like he can really complement these guys. So this could be it could be telling that this turns to be a really, really, really positive move and gamble that Thibodeau made for the Knicks. And of course, not just Thibodeau, their front office, but just coaching-wise as well. How you're going to incorporate this new guy into your offense and defense, and how you're going to make this work. And it doesn't look like it's going to be too bad to me. Tons of people were so angry. But I think this is going to work out for the Knicks. I really do. Maybe that's wishful thinking. Maybe that is wishful thinking. I don't know. But I really, 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 really think that RJ Barrett was a bust. I mean, their first-round draft pick there, and he's not a bad player, but he was not anywhere the caliber of a player that the Knicks expected him to be. Of course, Emmanuel Quigley's a good player as well, but I don't think Barrett and Quigley work together. I don't think Randall and those guys work together on the field on the court as best as you would have wanted. And so I think a change in scenery here, a change in teammates, and a guy who brings some good talent to the team, I think that is really going to benefit New York. So I didn't want to spend too much time on it because I know it's already been a couple of days since that trade. He's already played a game with the Knicks, and he did pretty good. He seems like he could become a pretty important player on their team. Time's going to tell if the Knicks completely botched this one and got fleeced or what the deal is. But that's just going to about do it for the NBA talk because there's not a ton. The Pistons did break their losing streak a while ago too, which was nice for them. So maybe the league is on the up now. Maybe the league is on the up. And as for MLB moves, I know Chris Sale signed with the Braves. That's a nice move. We'll get into the specifics of that as we come closer to the MLB season. Pitchers and catchers will report soon enough, right before we know it. And of course, the Yankees have announced that they are going to be visiting the Astros March 28th for their first spring training game. So we will get into baseball as soon as it comes to us, and it's going to be right around the corner. We're in the year now where Yankees baseball is going to be back. We've got Juan Soto that is going to be on the squad now. So we are expecting some baseball news pretty soon, actually. I mean, we're in January. We've only got really 2 months until we start to pick baseball up. February is even where the baseball talks start to increase, so we're going to be shifting gears pretty soon, folks, but let's not look ahead too far and let's enjoy this week of football and this week of college football that we've got up for us. With all that, that's going to do it for today's show. Thank you so much for tuning in to our first show of 2024. Can't wait to see where this program leads. Honestly, it's a blessing to be able to come on here and talk sports and just build a community. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the show, our schedule is now going to move to Tuesdays, 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Same place, everything's the same. Just not going to be able to keep up with the Monday through Friday schedule as I am still a college student and one day want to do this full time. But time does not allow for that at the moment. So we're just going to kind of make these big shows talking about what's going on and go for it every single Tuesday. So I hope you will continue to join me, share it around, go to GabbyGordonShow.com, send in a voice message. If you wish, you may hear your voice on a future episode of the podcast. And I just can't wait to see what we turn this thing into for 2024. And I cannot wait for you all to be a part of it as well. Very, very excited. So thank you once again for tuning in. Happy New Year to all of you out there who are listening. I will catch you next Tuesday, 5:30 p.m. ET. Once again, you've been listening to The Gabby Gordon Show. My name is Gabby Gordon. I'll catch you next time.